you talk a lot about becoming that child again. And I think there's a lot of parents listening to this. And so I've read a little bit about your work about children from 0 to 6 are sort of in theta state most of the time, and then alpha from like 8 to 12. But if I were a parent, how does Dr. Joe's work apply, and how can I implement it as a parent so that perhaps my child doesn't have all of these negative emotions that their body is addicted to by the time they find themselves at 35 years old running the software program of their life? So how would I help my children?
So I have 3 kids, and I've raised my kids with these principles, and I think there are critical periods, Ed, where certain information is more understood, and certain periods where you can really advance a teaching or an understanding. But children, you know, their first 6 years of their life, they're very suggestible to information, and their brainwaves are just in a slower pattern, so they don't have any critical facilities or analytical facilities. So big boys don't cry, little girls should be seen and not heard, money is the root of all evil, God is mad at you, you're going to go to hell. So kids just take that all in without any filter, and that becomes the foundation of their personality and their identity. Then you throw in parents. They're 95% of the time running unconscious programs. Well, children have mirror neurons, and mirror neurons emulate behavior. So when you were feeding your kids when they were young, you took that spoon and you went like this. You didn't know you were doing that, but you were doing that, and they were watching you and you were watching them, and they were turning on the same circuits in their brain that you were turning on, just so they could model the behavior. So then you can't say to the kid, stop being an emotional basket case, because they're not listening to anything you're saying, they're observing behavior. So when a lioness takes her cubs out to hunt, they sit and they watch her. And when they're watching her, she's priming their brain. They're actually going to emulate her behavior. So as they start observing her, they start turning on the same circuits they will when they hunt. So they start imprinting it, right? So then with children then, I call it the fast path to enlightenment, because if you want to raise a great kid, you got to be the example. And so, you know, there's certain principles with children in certain critical periods. You don't tell your kids when they're 4 years old, you create your reality, fix this, you know, they're not ready for that. But there are certain things at certain periods of time that are really healthy, and teaching children how to shorten the refractory period of their emotional reactions is so important. And simple things like a trampoline is a great way when a kid is upset, just
change their state.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
And they jump, and you jump with them. 10 minutes later, it's gone.
Isn't that true?
And so then you're teaching them that kind of emotional intelligence.
Gotcha.
Parents need to know that it's so important to understand to never rationalize with your kid when they're emotional. Why? Because do you want to hear anything when you're emotional, or do you want to be left alone? Because no new information can enter their nervous system that is not equal to the emotion that they're experiencing. It's not relevant. So then getting them past their emotional state and teaching them how to shorten their refractory period, and then timing.
Okay.
When they start getting ready for bed, and it's getting loving and it's getting quiet and they're settling down, get in bed with them and you lay there and you say, you know, I had a tough day today. I've been working on my frustration, you know, and I didn't do very well today. I got angry at a few points, I got frustrated, and I stayed that way for like 3 hours. And you just open the door for kids, and they'll say, yeah, you know, I was playing today. And they'll automatically say that, and I got so frustrated with my friend Paris, you know. And I'll say, well, that's all right, you know, that's normal, we all do that. But what I care about the most is that if you had another opportunity tomorrow in the same situation, how would you do it better?
Oh my God.
And then they'll say, well, I would do this, and then you say, really, if you do that, this is probably going to happen, so let's work on this together. So you start building a model. And you help them because they're so neuroplastic. And then once you get that model in place, then you say to them, tell me how to do it again. What would you do? Now what are they doing? They're rehearsing. And so now they're installing the circuitry. And then you say, wait, one more time, because you forgot that one part. And you'd be surprised because they're in that right suggestible state. And then you get the model down, and then you say, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. There was these 2 kids, a boy and a girl. because you have a boy and a girl, right? And they lived in this magic land, and if they're young, there's castles and there's dragons, and this little girl had a best friend, you know, and you tell the whole story, and she was making this reaction the same time in the same way, and all of a sudden, you know, she just decided to do something differently, and then you repeat it, and then you say, you know what happened? She wound up being happier and more loving to herself and more loving with everybody else. And then, you know, your kids will go, was that me? And you say, I don't know, was it? So then you're planting the seed.